I'm Matt Lips, and we're in San Francisco, California, in my studio. Before I was taking pictures, I was collecting pictures. So when I was 13, I had a poster of Alyssa Milano in my bedroom. I decided if I cut her out and I placed her behind my bed, it would look like she was standing behind my bed. And so I cut her out and I put her back there, and that was the first image I remember cutting out. Yeah, I've always been working with magazines. This is because it's how I learned to relate to images, which is interesting because magazine publications are fewer and fewer. Had like I grown up today, I'd be relating to images that were only on screens, which I wouldn't be able to cut out, which is a weird thing I've never thought about. But Untitled Men and Untitled Women are from a project that I did called Horizons. It's from a bi-monthly hardbound book journal, I guess, called Horizon Magazine. It was started in September 1958. And it was delivered to homes in America trying to teach like high culture and taste. They invite the American public to join them on towards a horizon of high art and culture. And it covered art from like antiquities to present, which was like 1960s, that I was looking at, but drama, theater, architecture, everything in the arts. It was a sense of discovery about how photography played a role and how reproduction of these images played a role that told you about hierarchy of what was important and what was not according to how the book magazine laid out and what they thought was important. Like Greek antiquities pictures were always in full 4-color, and they were like either full page or maybe even a 2-page spread. Whereas architecture was relegated to like very small black and white reproductions that were 1/4 page. I started just going through the magazine, and it's like in Africa on one page, and you turn the page and you're looking at masks, and you turn the page and you're looking at a Broadway star, and I started cutting out anything that I responded to free them from that context to see what other kinds of meanings can be found. Scale is definitely an important factor with the work. I'm not always, the trend is like bigger is better or more impressive somehow, and I don't mean to be a part of that, but I am necessarily, because if I take a picture of a small cutout and I reproduce it like a small cutout, it'll feel more like a paper doll. And I think that you will end up having a different relationship to the image if it changes in scale in relationship to your body. So Horizons, like as I started going after like broader ideas, like all of the men or all of the women, the crowd got much bigger and much bigger and much bigger. And that's actually why I ended up splitting it into diptychs, was because I couldn't actually make a photograph at the time that was going to, a single seamless photograph as large as I wanted this crowd to be. It had grown into having to be split into 2s. But I was curating these smaller events where I could pick some figures that, like, these were all the women, and I put them in one photograph, but then I did another photograph that was called Women's Heads, and some of those images were going to repeat. And I like that you would read this one grouping, that a single figure in one grouping would color or discolor the context around it. And so I lit them with these cross-colored gels. There's no white light in those photographs. They're opposite-colored gels that neutralize and turn to an even sort of white light on the fronts of them. But in the shadows, what you see is the colored gels, the opposite-colored gels, that they would literally discolor or color each other in different contexts. Because she would read one way in this group picture, but then she might read another way in another group picture. I definitely am curating these events. Going back to Roland Barthes, also in his book Camera Lucida, which he published, I think, came out in 1980, or it was his last book that he did, he defines the 2 terms punctum and studium. Studium being how you advance, kind of, how I define it. Studium is how you advance towards a picture and what the picture is of, how you might describe the picture. It's a forest, there's an animal in it, there's light coming into the picture. The punctum is the part that pricks or pokes or affects you. So I think of it as how the image sort of advances towards you. So when I'm looking through picture books, it's not exactly punctum, but it is like a personal relationship to that image and what it does to me, the effect it has on me, and selecting that image and pulling it out. With Horizons, I mean, I liked that it was directed at the American public to teach them culture. I thought that was a really interesting sort of guideline to stick within, so I looked at the first 10 years of it. So this is how we've decided to value these things in this sort of hierarchical order. And I mean, I don't find myself to be a troublemaker necessarily, but I was interested in sort of poking holes in it or really looking to examine it a little bit more. How did that help shape this thing that we know to be today to be photography?